Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Here's a story you probably won't believe at first. I didn't either. But it's all true. It all started because of a plastic fork. One of those cheap, white ones from takeout, slightly bent at the tip. I was on my hands and knees, digging under the couch cushions for the TV remote, and there it was. Not the remote. A fork. But it wasn't our fork. I know that sounds insane. Who notices a fork? But the thing is, Marlene and I had a set. One brand, one box. I'm the one who bought them. I noticed things. This one was different. And it was buried in the shadows, near the edge of the couch. Like it had fallen. Or been dropped in a rush. That was the first weird thing. The second came exactly 12 seconds later. I was still crouched down when I heard her voice. Not yelling, not whispering. Just casually cruel. I can't stand living with him. I feel like I'm slowly rotting here. She was in the kitchen, on a call. The door was open. I froze, half under the couch like some pathetic gopher. I'm just tired of pretending. Honestly, if he left, I wouldn't even stop him. Silence. And then, laughter. Not hers. A man. Not me. That's when I knew. That fork hadn't come from a takeout bag. It had walked in the front door. With him. And while I was scraping together grocery coupons and folding her bath towels into perfect thirds, she was entertaining guests. So I stood up. Quietly. My hands shaking. I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout. I left the fork exactly where I found it. And then I left the house. With nothing. Because apparently, I already was. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was too emotional or overwhelmed. I was numb, like my entire body had gone underwater and refused to float back up. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour laundromat, headlights off, watching strangers come and go like I wasn't even there. I kept replaying those words in my head. I can't stand living with him. I'm tired of pretending. If he left, I wouldn't stop him, like lines from a script I didn't know I was in. I didn't even know who the guy on the phone was, but something about the way she laughed when he did made me feel like the joke had been going on for a long, long time, and I was always the punchline. At 4:12 a.m., I finally turned my phone back on. Not a single message. No missed calls. No, where are you? Not even a hey, did you take the dog out? Just silence. Cold, sterile silence. And yet, I still convinced myself maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe she was venting. Maybe she was tired. Maybe I was overthinking. So I drove back. I didn't go inside. I parked down the block, across from the neighbor's driveway, where I had a clear view of our house, but far enough to not be seen. That's when I saw the porch light flicker on. A man stepped out. Not in a rush. No panic. He adjusted his jacket. He wasn't someone I recognized. Not a friend. Not family. Definitely not someone she mentioned. But the way she followed him to the door, barefoot, wearing my flannel shirt like it was hers, told me everything I needed to know. They hugged. She smiled. He touched her cheek. And then she shut the door like nothing had happened. Like I didn't exist. Like I hadn't spent years folding her laundry while she vented about work or giving up my weekends to repaint a bathroom. She changed her mind about 3 times. I waited until the light turned off, and I sat there another hour before finally driving away. It wasn't anger I felt. Not even heartbreak. It was humiliation. Like I'd been standing on a stage I didn't know was a stage. And someone finally pulled the curtain back to reveal that the audience had been laughing the whole time. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't answer calls. I just drove, past my old high school, past the park we used to visit in the early days, past everything that used to make sense. I didn't have a plan, but something in me had shifted, and I knew I couldn't pretend to be the same Curtis anymore. She wanted me to leave? Fine, but not before I gave her one last thing to pretend about. By the time the sun came up, I had driven nearly 200 miles with no idea where I was going. Somewhere along the way, I stopped at a diner with faded red booths and coffee that tasted like regret. I sat in the corner with my back to the wall, just watching people live, laughing, eating, scrolling through their phones. I used to be one of them. Now I was a ghost with a wallet. I kept opening my phone, not to check messages, because I already knew there were none, but to scroll through photos. Our photos. I tried to match the version of Marlene in my head with the woman who stood at the door smiling at another man. I couldn't. They were the same face, but not the same person. That realization gutted me more than her words. Because if she had been faking it, how much of our life had I been the only one actually living it? After breakfast, or whatever you call dry toast at 9 a.m., I pulled into the parking lot of a hardware store. Not for tools. For boxes. I had made a decision. I'd go back once. Just once. I'd walk into that house and pack everything that was mine, or that I could stomach touching, and I'd vanish like I never existed. No arguments. No drama. Just gone. The thought made me feel more in control than I had in days. But when I got home, something stopped me at the front door. There was laughter inside. Her laughter. Again. I stood there, holding those cardboard boxes like a delivery guy who couldn't ring the bell. Through the window, I saw her on the phone again. Same voice. Same smile. "I think he suspects something," she said. I couldn't move. "But he's too soft. He won't actually leave. He's comfortable in this life. He needs me more than I ever needed him." She was pacing. Confident. Like betrayal was something you planned with a latte in hand. And then she said something that changed everything. "Besides, if he ever finds out about me and Warren, I'll just cry. He folds when I cry." I didn't even know who Warren was. But now the fork had a name. And I wasn't going to fold. Not this time. I backed away from the window and returned to my car without touching the doorknob. I didn't pack a thing. Instead, I started making a list in my head, an inventory, not of what I'd take, but of what I was about to leave behind. And with every item, I felt myself becoming someone she wouldn't recognize. Someone who wouldn't fold. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't stay with friends. I didn't even call my brother in Portland, though I stared at his number in my contacts for 20 minutes. Instead, I drove back to the old storage unit my uncle used to rent before he passed. I knew the combination hadn't been changed. No one had touched that place in years. It smelled like rust, motor oil, and a bit of forgotten ambition. But it had a roof. And I needed a roof more than I needed comfort. I sat on an overturned crate, listening to the rain knock against the metal ceiling like someone knocking on the door of my sanity. I charged my phone from my car and stared at it, thinking, should I call her? Should I ask? Yell? Confront? But instead, I did something worse. I dialed her number and didn't say a word. I just let it ring. She answered on the third try, sounding slightly annoyed. "Curtis." Her voice shifted, tight, cautious. "Where are you? Did something happen?" She didn't sound worried. She sounded cornered. I still said nothing. Just breathed. She spoke again, more defensive this time. "Why are you acting weird? You're scaring me. What's going on?" Still silence. She sighed like someone who'd been inconvenienced. "If this is about earlier," she stopped herself. The call stayed open. A long pause. Then a whisper, probably thinking I'd hung up. "God, I hope he didn't hear that." And then, faint, like someone replying on her side. "Did he say anything? What did you tell him?" A man's voice. Not Warren. This one was younger. I could hear the difference. My stomach turned. She wasn't just cheating. She was juggling. I ended the call without a word. But something inside me twisted in a way that couldn't be untwisted. I wasn't dealing with a single betrayal. I was dealing with layers. Layers of lies she wore like perfume. Light enough to ignore, heavy enough to poison. And the worst part? I'd been the only one not in on the joke. I should have packed and left the state. But instead, I drove back the next evening when I knew she'd be gone. I used the spare key, walked into our house like a stranger entering someone else's life, and made my way to the desk drawer where we kept all the just-in-case things. I wasn't there for weapons or drama. I was there for the spare phone, the one she never used. Or so I thought. When I powered it on and saw the messages, I realized something far darker was happening than I ever imagined. Because Warren wasn't the only name. And I wasn't the only husband she was lying to. I sat in the dark with the glow of her spare phone lighting up my shaking hands, scrolling through messages that didn't feel like they belonged to the same woman I married. But they did. They had to. The wallpaper was a picture of her laughing in our kitchen, the one I took. Except the laugh now felt staged. Like even the digital version of her had been lying. The first message was from Warren, and I almost didn't open it. I already hated him without knowing him. But what I didn't expect was the familiarity in their texts. This wasn't new. They had nicknames. Memories. Private jokes that dated back months, maybe longer. Things I'd never heard her laugh about with me. She called him Spark, and he called her June, short for Junebug. I never even knew she liked that insect. But it got worse. Much worse. A different message thread was labeled simply E.M. I thought it was a friend. Maybe someone from her book club. But it wasn't a woman. It was a man named Everett Moxley. She'd met him at a wellness retreat. One I had paid for, ironically, because she said she needed to reconnect with herself. Judging by the photos, she definitely reconnected with him in a hot tub with wine while I was at home unclogging the upstairs sink. I should have stopped looking. I should have closed the phone, packed a bag, and walked out forever. But I kept scrolling like a man hypnotized by his own downfall. There were voice notes too. One from just 4 days ago. She giggled and said, "Curtis thinks I'm going to a friend's art exhibit. Meanwhile, I'm picking out lingerie at Target. I swear I should feel bad, but I just don't. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? An hour? Time bent around the betrayal. I kept replaying every moment in my mind. Her fake yawns when I wanted to watch a movie, the sudden girls' nights that always appeared last minute, her smile when I made her favorite dinner and she barely touched it. None of it was neutral anymore. Every ignored kiss, every side glance at her phone, it all screamed you were never enough for her. And yet, I still wasn't angry. Not like I should have been. I was just shattered in slow motion. Still holding on to pieces of her I didn't want to admit were broken. I didn't sleep that night. I hid the spare phone under the floorboard of my car, as if it were radioactive. And the next morning, when I saw her at home making coffee like nothing happened, barefoot, humming, wearing my hoodie, I realized she wasn't scared at all, because she didn't think I'd ever do anything. She thought I'd stay. And that's when I decided to give her a reason to wonder what else I knew, or what I might do next. She smiled at me that morning like she always did, like everything was normal. It was a small smile, the kind you give someone when you've been with them long enough to not try too hard anymore. But for the first time, I saw it for what it really was. It wasn't kindness. It was habit, a mechanical gesture, like turning off a light or locking the front door. There was no warmth in it, no sincerity, just the residue of a woman who knew how to act like a wife even when she had no intention of being one. She placed a coffee cup in front of me, the one that said #OneHusband, and walked away before I could even pretend to sip it. I watched her walk through the kitchen, phone in hand, already half smiling at whatever message she was reading. Maybe it was Warren. Maybe Everett. Maybe someone I hadn't discovered yet. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't in a marriage. I was in a role. A background character in her show. A prop she used when it made her look stable, clean, dependable. I was the man she showed off to family. The one she brought to work events and called her rock. But I was just a placeholder. And she was already building a new life without me. Just not officially. Not yet. That day, I didn't go to work. I faked a stomach ache, said I needed to rest. She barely responded, just nodded and left by noon, claiming she had an impromptu lunch with Fiona. I didn't even bother pretending to believe her. The moment she pulled out of the driveway, I went into her side of the closet. I wasn't looking for proof. I already had that. I was looking for confirmation of what kind of person she'd become when she thought no one was watching. And sure enough, in the back corner of the top shelf, I found the small lockbox I once gave her for keeping sentimental things. Inside were old movie tickets, a broken earring, and a folded napkin with a lipstick kiss and the name Maddox written underneath. Maddox. Another name. Another man. But what truly cracked something open inside me was the receipt beneath it. 2 weeks ago. Hotel room. Downtown. Paid in cash. Not under her name, but his. I stared at it, and my hands started to tremble. Not because she'd been cheating, I was beyond that now, but because of how easy it was for her to keep track of them all, and still come home, hand me coffee, and pretend to be someone who loved me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even break anything. Instead, I took my phone, opened the hidden voice recording app, and whispered one sentence into it. This is the last day she'll ever lie to me in this house. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I was done playing the role. It was time for her to wonder what part she was really playing, and who was still watching. She came home late that night, later than usual. I was sitting in the living room pretending to read a book I hadn't touched in years. I heard the garage door creak open, the slow hum of her engine cutting off, then the soft click of her heels on the hallway tile. She paused when she saw me. I didn't look up right away. I wanted her to speak first, to wonder why I wasn't already in bed, why the house felt slightly colder, why something felt off. "Hey," she said, slow and cautious. "You feeling any better?" Her voice didn't shake. She was good at this. I nodded, still not looking up. "Yeah, just tired." Silence stretched between us like a tight rope. She stood there, purse still slung on her shoulder, like she wasn't sure whether to sit down or leave again. I finally lifted my eyes and gave her a tired smile, the same kind she's given me 1,000 times before. She relaxed, thinking she still had control. That's when I said it. "Who's Maddox?" She blinked, like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. Her smile froze halfway. "What?" I tilted my head slightly. "I found a receipt. Downtown hotel. Cash. 2 weeks ago. Oh, and the lipstick napkin. Very classy touch." The silence that followed was almost cinematic. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then gave the most pathetic performance of her life. "Curtis, don't." I interrupted, calm as ever. "Just don't." I stood, grabbed the small envelope I had placed on the coffee table earlier, and handed it to her. Inside was a single photograph, her and Everett at the retreat, wrapped in towels, her face pressed against his neck. I didn't print it to confront her. I printed it so she'd know what I knew, and that I'd barely scratched the surface. Her hand trembled. She didn't say a word, just stared at the image like it might rearrange itself if she waited long enough. "I'm leaving tomorrow," I said. "You won't know where. You won't hear from me. You'll tell whatever story you want, and maybe someone will believe you. But not me. Not anymore." She opened her mouth again, this time not to explain, but to beg. But I had already turned around. I went upstairs and shut the door, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to hear. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was hurt, but because I felt clean, like the pain had burned away everything that was rotting inside me. Before sunrise, I packed a single duffel bag, left my ring on the kitchen counter beside her untouched coffee mug, and walked out. But before I did, I left one last thing tucked beneath her pillow, a copy of the recording. Just a whisper of my voice, saying, "This is the last day she'll ever lie to me in this house." I didn't want revenge. I wanted silence. And now, she had plenty of it. I didn't move far, just far enough. I rented a small cottage by a lake 2 towns over. Quiet place, barely any cell reception, and just one diner that made pancakes taste like forgiveness. At first, the silence was unbearable. I wasn't used to it. For years, I had filled my life with noise. Marlene's conversations, her laughter that now felt borrowed, her lies that echoed in the walls. But something strange happened about a week after I left. I woke up without checking my phone. I made coffee and drank it slowly, not because I was waiting on anyone, but because I had time. I walked the lake trail every afternoon with no one to text back. And eventually, I stopped flinching when I heard a woman's voice nearby. I had feared I'd be broken forever, but I wasn't. I was just bent in the shape she left me. And now, slowly, I was bending back. She texted, of course, called, emailed. She even left a voicemail crying, asking how I could disappear without giving her a chance to fix it. But I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I finally realized I didn't know her healing. That was her journey. Mine was just beginning. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since college. I reconnected with my brother in Portland, finally told him everything. He cried more than I did. Said he never liked Marlene, but didn't want to interfere. Typical. I forgave him too. The more I talked, the lighter I felt. And then one morning, 3 months later, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man I saw. But for the first time, in a good way, I had grown back into myself. And oddly, I felt grateful, not for the betrayal, but for the clarity it forced me to see. She didn't destroy me. She freed me. She just did it the cruelest way possible. But I survived. Better yet, I lived. So if you're watching this and thinking you'd never walk away because you're too soft, too forgiving, too afraid to start over, I was you. Until I wasn't. You don't need anger to leave. You just need truth. And peace will meet you on the other side. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a betrayal that led to something better, share your story below, or tell us about a historical moment where someone walked away and changed everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories. Until next time.